Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of Art, Mind, and Soul. Today I have photographer Logan Poe. Say hey to everybody.
Hello.
Can you give us some background about you?
So my name is Logan Poe. I'm a photographer based out of Brooklyn, New York. I've worked with different brands like Nike, Adidas, Puma on various different campaigns. I've done some travel campaigns for Booking.com, and I've just been all over New York for the last 2 years and just different places in America doing photography as a full-time job. So.
Okay, cool. When did you fall in love with art?
I'd say from a very young age, art as a whole, I've always been the kid who's drawing in my family. I've always been the kid who's just been doing different artistic projects and everything. I feel like I really started taking it serious when I was 12, 13 around. That's when I started picking up video editing. At first it was really in the esports and gaming realm, and then I slowly transitioned it into the real life type of videography that I do now, and then that translated to photography, which I latched on to, just ran with. So
yeah.
It was from a pretty early age. It was I'd say the minute I could start writing and everything. Actually, no, I was from the womb. I was playing the drums and stuff. So really, I've always been a creative kid.
Okay, what are you drawn to about photography?
It's for me. It's the craft of perfecting a single moment in time, or being able to make a single image that can speak volumes or speak paragraphs and everything. I'm always trying to. That challenge to me has always been something that has intrigued me, and it's always been something that brings me back to photography continuously. So I feel it's just the challenge of being able to translate emotions and everything, or translate a message through a single frame. That's what keeps me coming back every time. That challenge is always so interesting, intriguing, and hard, but at the same time invigorating and very engaging. So yeah.
Okay. Are there any pieces of your personality that show up in your work?
When it comes to at my late work, I've been doing a lot of photographing of the different protests that have happened in New York City and Atlanta. I might be going back to Detroit soon, so I might be getting to photograph some of the protests happening there, and then some of the ones happening in LA when I go out to LA and everything. But as a Black man, I feel it's been my responsibility to photograph these protests and tell my own experience along with the experiences of the protesters and different stuff that's going on. So, and that's just something that's very important to me. So that's something I'm covering. So I guess in that sense, all of my work is like that. I don't usually go out of my way to photograph things and share work that I don't care about to some degree, or don't like to some degree. It always has something to do with my own interests, or my own likes, or my own emotions. So.
Or why do you create?
That is a hard one, and I'm always stumped when someone asks me that. It's for different reasons, I'd say. I guess for me personally, it's a therapeutic process. I get a lot of photography is an escape for me. I struggle with different mental illnesses and everything, so it's the act of being creative, especially doing photography and being in my medium where I feel the most comfortable. It's a very therapeutic event in my day-to-day life. I pick up my camera and I can just escape everything that's going on right now. I can escape my head, I can escape my past, or anything I'm worried about in the future. I can always just go back to my camera and just focus on the present moment. But above that, it's I'm always trying to see what I can do with photography. Can I use it to tell my own story? Can I use it to spread a message? Can I use it to bring awareness to a particular issue that I'm very passionate about?
Do you feel your ability to create affects your mental health, or vice versa?
I would say that my ability to create does affect my mental health in a very positive manner. I'm not someone that gets creative blocks when I'm faced with mental illness. I usually get inspired by really everything about life and just my own personal experiences. So being able to channel that energy and channel those emotions through my art is a very like I said before, it's a therapeutic process, so it helps me a lot with staying sane and staying stable over the course of a long period of time. I've always struggled with anxiety since I was a little kid. I was really bad as a very little kid, and it got better as I got older. as of late, from the last like I'd say 4 years, I've begun to struggle with like depression and everything. But I will say I've always like go back to like the reason why I've been able to like treat it and like handle it really well is because of my career as an artist, and because I'm able to like do photography, and because I have an outlet for it still. So, but I will say like I have gone through like a lot of different traumatic instances in my past that have forced me into very annoying headspaces that I don't want to be in.
Yeah, I get that. Do you have any other outlets that you use that are other forms of art to kind of help you through times like that?
Yeah, so I do a lot of poetry and I do some filmmaking. The poetry is the main thing that helps me get through a lot of my mental illnesses and stuff, and just different like hard times I'm always going through. I feel like my family is somewhat more inclined towards words rather than visuals, because I have a little brother, he's a rapper and a writer, and my older sister is a spoken word poet and a writer, and she's a lawyer.
Oh, wow,
I kind of naturally fell into like this spoken written word niche, and I found myself like being pretty good at it at like around my teenage years. So after I discovered that I was like kind of good at it, I kind of got obsessed with like just writing different poems, and I tried to like. There was at one point where I was writing a poem every single day. Like I would get in the subway, and I would like on the way to school, on the way to work, I would just like write a different poem, and I would just try to keep that up. But that definitely does help with like having a second outlet to channel my emotions through.
Do you feel like being Black or being a Black man affects the impact of your work?
It does, and that bothers me actually a little bit. I feel like I will speak on the fact that there's a lot of activists that are saying like, oh, white photographers don't like use this as your time to rise. Like don't use this as your moment to like make a famous picture. But I feel like the issue that's going on is a human issue, not just a Black issue right now. Like this is a human issue. This is police brutality. Like this is like everyone is dealing with this to some degree. Maybe it is disproportionately happening to like the African American community and everything, but it's like at the end of the day, it's a human issue. And I wish that like all of the amazing photographs like from everybody would be treated as fair game. But I do recognize that because of me being a Black man and me having a certain experience, that my photos do translate as more impactful to my audience just because I'm a Black man. So I would say, yeah, it does, but it does kind of annoy me because I know some of my other friends who are like photographers from different races, maybe they're not necessarily white, but they have arguably better photos of me from the protests, but they're getting put down because they're saying like that they're using the protests as a way to get ahead in the world, when it doesn't really seem like the way. It seems like all like artists in general are just trying to like spread awareness for what's going on. I think that's the right thing to do. I feel like if you have the ability, if you have like the talent if you have the platform to spread awareness, then you should be doing that. I don't feel like it should just be like a Black thing or like a white thing or an Asian thing. It's like, no, you should, if you have a camera and you have the talent, and especially if you have a platform to be able to spread awareness about this, like go to the protest, like photograph, document what's going on, like spread awareness. Yeah. So as an act of trying to be more progressive, I try to separate this is also like a very strange thing because most Black people don't agree with me on this. But before this particular instance, and I guess even now, I always try to see myself as a human before I see myself as Black. So I've always tried to like make art that encompasses my human experiences before I am like a Black man. But I will say that I have a certain experience set because I'm a Black man that has allowed me to make certain types of art. Like for instance, I did a series of portraits where I photographed 30 different Black men, and I asked them all what defines you as a human being. And I had them write their responses, like hand responses. I didn't give them any guidelines on how they can respond. I said like, hey, just ask the question. You can draw, you can do poetry, you can write a paragraph. If you wanted to say you write an essay for 2 hours, I'll let you do that as long as you answer the question. And I got a very wide range of responses to like help highlight that like all black men aren't the same. Like we all of us have different things to define us. All of us have different values and things like that. And I feel like that was a stigma that definitely existed and still exists today in America. Like black men are expected more so to like be really into hip hop, we're expected to like be like into basketball, we're expected to just be, there's like a stereotype that still exists with black men, and I'm like always trying to constantly break that because we have so much variance in our personalities. It's yeah, so it's strange. I'm like, I wish, to answer your question, I guess I'm always trying to like decide like whether I want to do something that's more human oriented or do something that's more African American oriented and like more black oriented, and I'm always fighting with that. But yeah, I guess that's what I have to say about that. And as of late, I feel like with just the political climate right now, it just makes the most sense to spread the message that just needs to be said right now. It's like, this is my experience as a black man, and like these are like my issues that I'm facing. We definitely need to address these things so we can all like move on to the next issue, and we have far more things to be worrying about. It's kind of ridiculous that we're 400 years into this and we're still talking about racism. It's ridiculous. At the moment, I'm focusing on like a lot of introspective pieces. So I definitely do plan to release that project before I was talking about the black man called Ill-Defined. That's a finished project that's damn near completely done right now. I just need to find a publisher for the book and everything, because it's going to be a photo book when it's released. And I was planning on doing a photo gallery for it, but I'm trying to figure out how that's going to work out with COVID-19 right now. But there's that project coming out. But beyond that, I have a lot of introspective projects coming out. So there's something called Isolation. It's a photographic zine that's coming out within the next, hopefully, 6 months. But I've just been doing a lot of self-portraits and a lot of poetry and everything, focusing on like autophobia, which is the fear of being alone and being being isolated within COVID and everything, and like learning how to be in my own head and learning how to like deal with the different thoughts that pop up and bubble up when I'm alone, and learning how to like stop running from just my own thoughts and everything, and like learning how to just like really like being able to sit in my head and being able to think clearly and being able to work through different issues from my past and just being able to like be okay with myself. And that's been like a very large project that I've been working on for like the last 4 months, about since around March area. It's all self-portraits, so all the photographs have been taken by me. It's been over the course of 4 different cities. So I've taken photos in Chicago, Detroit, New York, and Atlanta so far. And I just finished the last few photographs for it 2 days ago. So that's the project that's coming out. And then I have some other ones that are kind of similar to that have been not as developed, which are just more so, they're also like products that deal with like my past and like different issues that I faced in my life. And a lot of those are projects that like wrap in poetry with photography, which I'm trying to like make a theme in my work. But it's not difficult establishing it. It's just like making the work is a bit slow of a process than my normal like work that I do. So yeah.
Wow, all those things sound amazing. So I'm definitely excited to see those come out. And those will be like on your website, on your Instagram.
Yeah, so Ill-Defined will be released as, I'm still trying to figure out how I want to do it, because I wanted to originally do it as gallery that turned into a book. I might just go straight into a book now, but I might still be able to do the gallery with the space that I have called Candy, New York, out in Ridgewood, Queens. It's just working it out, but everything will eventually be on my website, or I'll like release it on my Instagram, which is like at po.logan. Or I'll release it somewhere, and there'll be an announcement that it's coming out, and then I'll put it out. It's just like figuring out the best way to do it right now, with COVID and everything. So
yeah. How has COVID affected your work?
I was saying before, like it really forced me to be inside a lot, to be like a lot in my head. So I had to learn how to be by myself. I had to learn how to like be completely isolated for a long period of time. I had to like learn how to like really like be in my head and become my own best friend. So I documented a lot of that process, and that has definitely affected a lot of like my view of myself and like how my view of my own work and everything, and like how I even approach life. So for instance, I feel like I was definitely doing a lot of this before COVID-19 had came to be. I follow a clinical psychologist named Jordan Peterson. He wrote a book called 12 Rules to Life. And in the fourth rule in that book is, do not compare yourself to who someone else is today. You want to compare yourself to who you were yesterday. And I felt like before COVID started, I definitely was really caught up in Instagram and social media and like different photographers and like who they were and like catching up to them by a certain age and like getting this campaign by the time I was 20 and like doing X, Y, and Z. Like now I'm really just competing with who I was yesterday every single day. So I'm just more so, I'm really focusing on like and honing in on like who I am and like what I want to do. And I'm not my own type of calendar. I'm not like on anyone else's calendar. I'm not really competing with anybody else. I'm just kind of like, I'm always trying to top myself instead of trying to like worrying about what everyone else is doing. So I don't have social media on my phone really anymore. Like if I check it, it's because I'm on my laptop and the notification comes up. I don't Twitter on my phone, no Instagram on my phone. That's like, I just go on my laptop if I need to go check those. Yeah, just like, I'm just really worried about myself, more so focused on myself, not really trying to worry about what anyone else is doing.
Yeah, I love that. So it's been a lot of like self-care and self-love for you.
Yeah, it's just like learning to like just forgive myself for things I've done in the past, like learning how to like move forward and just continue and like being able to like love myself and really care for myself.
Well, we're nearing the end of this episode, and so I just wanted to see if there's any advice that you have for anyone that's wanting to get into photography, or just advice, like general life advice that you want to give.
If you're trying to get into photography, shoot every day and shoot with whatever you have on you. That's like the biggest thing. Shoot every single day, and then figure out what you want to shoot, and then shoot that every day. Like pick one thing and then get really good at it. For me, that's portraits. And it ended up like being a lot of different. That ended up like splitting into a lot of different things. But like, at its rock, it's like really portraits and like telling story to people. But for other people, maybe that's like maybe you're a landscape photographer, maybe you're a street photographer, maybe you're like, maybe tell the story that you want to tell, find that story, and then just keep going at it. Keep on like just trying to figure out the best way to like tell that story visually, and I think you'll be all right. General life advice: don't let nobody play you. Like, know your worth.
Okay.
You can't. It's very hard to like know your worth. Whatever you think your worth is, like you're actually like worth twice as much. Just always remember that.
That's real. So, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. Okay, good advice. Good advice. Well, can you tell everyone again where to find you on social media or your website?
For sure. So my Instagram, which is like my main social media, is at poe.logan, at poe.logan. My Twitter is, and everything else for the most part is Poe Logan with N's, so it's POE, no space, LOGANNN. And then my website is www.loganpoe.com. So
well, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it, and I will definitely be on the lookout for your project.
Thank you for inviting me, for sure, man. Like, I really appreciate it.
Yeah. You have a great night. You be safe out there.
Yep, you too.
All right.